episodes 5 and 6 of The Last Dance. Now, let's do it chronologically, because as much as I want to start with the gambling stuff, so we don't get confused, let's try to keep chronological order, and we'll start with the Dream Team. And basically, I would say, what would you, if you had to break it down, Michael Jordan doing this documentary, 50% to remind everyone in the world that Michael Jordan's the GOAT and LeBron, like he's still better than LeBron, and 50% just to shit down Isaiah Thomas's throat.
Yes, I was going to say, I think that a big part of him finally releasing this footage, 22 years later, is just to remind Isaiah Thomas that he was not on the Dream Team because he didn't shake his hand after that playoff series, and that Christian Laettner was on that team. How out of place do you think Christian Laettner felt at that practice? He probably knew better. Christian Laettner was probably on the sidelines just like knowing not even to try to sub himself into the game.
Oh, it's been said, it's been talked about that, like MJ said, like no matter what team Christian Laettner was on, they would always lose. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what, because he was that bad and that far out in the deep end when it came to how good this team was. The Monte Carlo practice is something that I think someone has the full unedited tape, and I don't know why we can't watch it. Like, it makes no sense. Unless something has been said in it that can't be taken back. But it's crazy because it actually is the exact moment. And, of course, MJ had already won 2 titles, but it's the exact moment where the torch really gets passed because you see Magic being like, it's still my team.
Yeah.
And then that happens, and he's like, well, I guess it's not my team anymore.
Yeah, imagine taking a torch out of a practice session. Like, we're not talking about an NBA Finals. We're not talking about a playoff series. Michael Jordan took the torch during a practice session, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Michael Jordan had paid players on Christian Laettner's team to lose every single practice game just so that they could go back and say, like, hey, Isaiah, you could have been on this team instead of this loser Christian Laettner, and you weren't. But, yeah, that practice was I'd heard the stories about it before. Hadn't seen this much footage of it yet. The footage has to exist. It actually, if you want to get our conspiracy theorist hat on, I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that LeBron James purchased that film like he purchased the film of getting dunked on at the Nike camp and just burned it so that people would know just truly how great Michael Jordan was.
There's a longer version on YouTube that I've watched, and I know that it does exist. I don't know why we can't watch the whole thing. There's got to be a reason, or maybe like now would be the time to let us see the whole thing, but I would say it's probably the greatest practice of all time. And then the other stories out of the Olympics, the Tony Kukoc. So we have the Michael Jordan grudge meter that we've been doing the last couple episodes after these Last Dance. He has a full list tonight. The Tony Kukoc, where basically if Jerry Krause ever had eyes for anyone ever, Michael Jordan's basically like, I'm going to destroy your life. And that first game against Tony Kukoc, when Kukoc was like, I didn't even know we were playing that hard. And Jordan had Pippen guarding him and just like dunking on him and everything. And then Pippen with just the ruthless, like, yeah, he can't even play in the NBA because he was mad that Jerry Krause was going to, pay him more than he was paying Pippen. That was great. And then I just remember that Dream Team was such a joke how much better they were than everyone. It was so insane. They did lose one game to a scrimmage to a college all-star team where I think Chuck Daly didn't even play MJ just to prove the point, like, you guys could lose to anyone, but they couldn't lose to anyone.
They couldn't. They didn't take a timeout in the entire Olympics. It's incredible how good that team was. Like, it occurred to me while I'm watching this that there's so many people out there whose best moments in their lives are getting their ass kicked by Michael Jordan. There are probably 3,000 people that, looking back on their deathbed, they're like, you remember when Michael Jordan just absolutely dominated me? That was pretty cool.
So speaking of that, because I went to look up, I was trying to find some stories.
That's why Dan Dockich doesn't shut up.
Well,
it's true. It's true. It's a good point.
It's a great point because I thought about this when I was watching Croatia. Dockich seems like it's a Croatian name. Could he have played for Croatia in those Olympics and come in as like the Jordan stopper?
I don't think he was good enough. I mean, Tony Kukoc was a fucking really good player. And Croatia was actually like, they were world's worse than USA, but they were better than everyone else. So I went and looked up, no offense to Dockich, but that's just Yeah, he's not an NBA. He's not an NBA caliber player or Europe caliber player. So I went back and I looked because there's a bunch of famous stories about how MJ would play 36 holes before these games and not even care. I found one that I had never seen before from Charles Barkley. I think he told recently, and it's basically MJ rolled up everything you just said, PFT, like the amount of people out there who are like, my best moment is getting smoked by him.
Yeah.
So it was I'm gonna read what Chuck said. He said they go out, play 18, and Chuck Daly says, okay, that was a great time. And Michael says, nah, I'm going to go play another 18. And Barkley says, I'm like, Michael, we got a game tonight. He says, Chuck, I'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. So Michael comes back after playing another 18. We're getting ready for the game. And Chuck says, Charles, you got this guy. Scottie Pippen, you got this guy. And then Michael says, nah, I got him. It was the point guard from Puerto Rico. And Chuck says, well, he's the point guard, Michael. Michael looks at him and says, I said I got him. I read something he said about me in the newspaper, and I got him. And the whole room's like, dude, you just played 36 holes of golf, and you're going to guard the point guard. Michael would not let this little dude dribble. He had played 36 holes, and he's talking to the guy the whole time like, hey, don't you ever talk about me publicly again. I'm Michael Jordan. Don't you ever talk about me. That is a practice scrimmage game against Puerto Rico.
We got to look up and find out exactly what the guy said, because my guess is the dude from Puerto Rico was like, yeah, Michael Jordan's the best player of all time, but he's human, or something innocuous like that. You know, like on a good day, anything can happen. And Jordan took it. Jordan had to. He was at a level where he had to invent all these rivals that weren't actually rivals to him, just so he could like get motivated to go out and beat somebody's ass.
Right, like, hey, like, you know, we've been practicing really hard. Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time, but we can't go in there and be intimidated by him.
Yeah. And Jordan was like, no, I got this guy.
So the other, also, Harvey Schiller is on the grudge meter. That just random clip where he's like, Harvey Schiller's a real dick, right before MJ pulls the classic move of the flag over the Reebok, which I'm sure would have been, it was a controversy back then because there was nothing to talk about in terms of the games. But today it would have been like insano. People would have flipped out.
It also got Reebok a lot of action on social media tonight. Like, how many impressions did they get just based off Michael Jordan punking him back in 1992?
Also, how about Adidas listening to MJ be like, yeah, Adidas was my number one, but they literally couldn't make a shoe.
Yep. That's tough. That's tough if you're in Adidas exactly.
Unbelievable. All right, so the other part of the episode 5, which was very interesting, was the political stuff, and the famous Republicans buy sneakers too, which MJ says it was a joke, and Sam Smith has since many times been like, yeah, he said it in jest, but it became something like a lot bigger. I don't know what your take is, PFT, but you can criticize MJ for never being an activist, but the one thing that he has always done is he's been pretty true to himself, in that he's like, this is kind of how I feel and how I'm going to do it, and it doesn't feel fake at any point.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So you can always point from the outside and be like, I wish this person would say more about this or that, but it's tough to tell somebody like what to actually do when you're in their shoes. Like that's a completely different thing. If you just want to keep to yourself and go about your business, his life was not as a politician. His public life was not, as a policymaker or as, somebody who stood out there for social issues. His job was a basketball player. And if he didn't feel comfortable doing that, I've always found it tough to criticize somebody for not kind of going out of their lane a little bit if it's not important enough to them to do it.
It's actually, and it speaks to the greater like theme of these two episodes, that people wanted MJ to fit in a perfect like box, and they wanted him to be the perfect guy and everything, and they wanted him to be as politically active as Muhammad Ali, and they wanted him to not have a gambling problem and all these things. And it's like, but he's kind of been open with how human he is. Like, these are the things I like, and these are the things I'm not going to do. And yeah, you could say someone with that platform might want to speak up more, but at the same time, he's always been consistent with that's how he's going to approach it.
Yeah, and if that's the route that you want to take in public life, I find it hard to criticize somebody for not saying like what I wish they would say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let the person be themselves a little bit. I didn't realize, because I guess I hadn't paid that much attention to it before, but I didn't know that the dude was running against Jesse Helms.
Just comes like very, very racist. That I think is the part that makes it like, hey, come on, MJ. If there's ever a time that you could speak up, this is the time.
Well, he didn't want to offend the future Air Monarch shoe owners of America.
Right. But again, I'm not going to tell someone how to, what they should and shouldn't do when it comes to just because they're a famous basketball player. And if he doesn't, I just have always thought his consistency with it, at least if he went back and forth and did it when it was convenient for him, I'd have a bigger problem with just being like, either you are or you aren't.
Yeah, it's an interesting study because Michael Jordan was the most famous person in the entire world probably for 10 or 15 years. And it's like, can somebody like that exist without taking a stand on public platform issues? And he just kind of chose to keep to himself and focus on what was important to him. And, of course, there are certain things that people wish he would have done differently. But I'm not going to be like, no, Michael Jordan, from my perspective, should have done this and that, because it's really easy for me to say.
Right. So that was interesting, though. I thought that was the first time in the documentary where it was starting to get into a territory where it's like, hey, he's not perfect, And it's interesting because there were maybe some people criticizing that it was I saw Ken Burns, who has heard from Ken Burns in the last 20 years, said that it was too much of a puff piece. But it's like, why don't you let the whole 10 episodes come out and let's then judge it? And this was pretty honest that people were not happy with MJ for this. And then we have the other moment where in episode 6, people are going after him for his gambling. I've never related to anyone more than Michael Jordan saying, I don't have a gambling problem. I can stop whenever I want. Knowing that he still gambles to this day.
Right. And he could
but
stop.
He hasn't wanted to stop. He has not wanted to stop.
He doesn't have to. And David Stern's quote, it was something along the lines of his gambling issue was never an epic crisis of a problem. Like adding 2 qualifiers on there, like he knew it was a very bad problem. But again, this is all on a sliding scale. If you're Michael Jordan and you're rich as shit, and like he said, his family's not starving, his kids aren't starving, that's how you know it would be a problem. Then I guess he didn't have a gambling problem. He had a problem when he would lose gambling because then he needed to gamble more.
Yeah, he had a competition problem. He said he just wanted to compete. Who doesn't want to compete?
If that Jerry curled security guard wouldn't have beat him in the throwing the quarter against the wall competition, then he wouldn't have to gamble against that guy for the rest of his life until he made that money back.
That shrug was so great. That was such a great behind-the-scenes moment right there. That shrug was all time. Connie Chung, by the way, I miss those interviews in the 90s when they did like the soft focus on the camera, so everything was a little bit blurred, and she dropped the, people are saying you're gambling with your reputation. He was like, "What do you mean? Like, what are you fucking talking about? I like to play blackjack and I like to lose a shitload of money because I think I'm better at golf than I am.
Right.
Leave me alone."
All in all, losing 5-6 figures at a time playing blackjack is not that bad of advice considering what the alternatives could have been for somebody with his high profile, right? So yeah, he likes to gamble. Okay, everyone's got a vice. If you don't have a vice, then you've got some serious. Like Marv Albert didn't have a gambling problem, but.
That toupee, by the way, I forgot how apparent Marv Albert's toupee has been through history. Go ahead, Hank.
One thing that I do think is a common misconception, because it was for me before we moved to New York, is that Atlantic City is really not near New York City whatsoever. No, so him being like, I just wanted to get out of the city for a little while, it's 4 hours to get there. Like 4 long hours.
That story when he was like, we were there till like, we went to gamble play a little blackjack, and I was home by like 12:30. It's like, dude, no chance. He was home by 12:30. No chance.
Yeah, you would have to leave Atlantic City at like 9:15 to get home by midnight. It didn't happen. He probably took a helicopter.
He said he took a limo, but yeah, he might have taken one back. But at the end of the day, it's like he's not hurting anyone, and like he said, he has a lot of money and he gambles it. I remember that book, by the way, about the guy, the Esquinas guy, the Michael and Me. He basically wrote a book because MJ wouldn't pay his debt. Like that was like the ultimate nerd move to be like, like the mafia breaks your kneecaps. This Esquinas bro just wrote a fucking book being like, I played golf with MJ. He owes me a shitload of dough.
It'd be a real shame if this story would end up on the New York Times bestseller list. Like,
that's having it be Michael and Me.
That's such a loser threat to make. Yeah.
Yeah, in that picture. And then, of course, I mean, it's pretty shocking that MJ as late as 92, 93 was hanging out with Slim Bowler and being like that's a guy named Slim with Jerry curl and like a golf. He's all known as a golf hustler. Like that's just gonna get you in trouble every time.
Was it like 90% of people named Slim? When they fill out their income taxes, they write hustler as their profession.
It's so great.
I mean, I think everybody should have.
That he's still hanging with them. Yeah.
Everybody should have a friend named Slim that all they do is gamble with.
Yeah, but that was such a funny scene. And then MJ was like, "Yeah, $57,000 check. I had to pay him because I lost in golf." So it's I'm sure we'll get a little darker when we get to the next episode when we talk about MJ's dad getting murdered, but there is an element of like people going after him for the politics stuff and the gambling stuff. They wanted this perfect thing and it just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and it's almost like you can make the analogy to like Tiger getting caught for having like a sex addiction. You have these athletes. No athlete is perfect. You think you know these human beings, but they're not perfect. And there's a lot, and it starts with the Jordan Rules book, and then the Isaiah stuff, and then the political activism, and then the gambling. Like, it becomes hey, this guy is not exactly the perfect guy that you think he is. He's unbelievable at basketball, and he's rough around the edges. What are you going to do?
Right. If you gave the average person in America the attention, the level of fame, and the money that Michael Jordan had in the year 1998, and just sent them out into the wild, I guarantee you almost every single person would get into some more messed up shit than Michael Jordan did. Michael Jordan, I mean, to be fair, like, yeah, he's not perfect. He did some bad stuff, and I think, like, his personality comes out, his hyper-competitive personality rubs people the wrong way, and that's part of who he is, and that's part of how he, achieved the level of greatness that he did. But at the end of the day, like most people, if they were put in that situation, they would fuck up way worse than Michael Jordan did. So I don't have a problem with that. And when Ken Burns is like, "Oh, this isn't a real documentary," he's like, "Yeah, no shit, Ken Burns. Okay, like
right.
You're Ken Burns. You bleed capital J journalism. It's like Mozart complaining that Nickelback, doesn't write good enough music. It's like, yeah, this documentary is not like capital J journalism. Michael Jordan had the ultimate sign off on it. He had Final Cut or whatever. We're here to watch a story about Michael Jordan featuring awesome behind-the-scenes footage. And I'm going to enjoy doing that.
Right. Other notes I had, so the grudge meter, the B.J. Armstrong quote when he was like, in that 92 season, they were all playing and MJ just was figuring out ways to win games. Like, he wasn't really, like, it wasn't even a game to him. He was just like, I'm just going to win the game when I want to. Like, everyone else is playing basketball. He's just winning games.
Mm-hmm. The Suns coach... How about in the finals against the Suns when this is how you know that you're going to lose, when your coach starts screaming, "We're not going to let Jordan beat us." Like, that's his strategy, is just to scream loudly that we're not going to let Jordan beat us. At that point, Jordan's already won.
Dude, that and Charles, just seeing skinny Charles, and Charles Barkley was so goddamn good. It's kind of like he's gotten so fat and not winning a title, but again, he lost to Michael Jordan. And that moment where he said in game 2 when he's like, "I played the best game of my life," and MJ just outplayed me. I went back and looked at the box score. Charles had 42, 13, and 4, and MJ had 42, 12, and 9. He's just like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So and I do love. So there was some more grudges that were settled. So Clyde Drexler in episode 5, when that's just the media saying that Clyde and MJ are on the same level. So that's not even Clyde Drexler doing that. MJ was just like, fuck this guy. He's not on my level. Barkley in the 93 series, because Barkley wins the MVP, which weirdly enough, like, you could make the case that MJ should have won the MVP all 6 years that they won the titles, but they gave it to Barkley in 93 and they gave it to Malone in 97 because of the MJ fatigue. And in a weird way, that just made it more unfair for the rest of the league by being like, you're not the MVP you're not the best player in the league this year. Mm-hmm. Okay, how's Michael Jordan going to react to that? He's going to fucking rip their heart out. So he had Barkley, and then Dan Marley, another Jerry Krause, where Jerry Krause is like, I love Dan Marley, and then Michael Jordan's like, yo, fuck that. If you like him, I hate him. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, and when Paxson hits that shot and you see Dan Marley Dan Marley almost pulls the Craig Elo and falls to the ground.
Yes.
When John Paxson releases that shot, he's like, I know this is going in.
What a hero. He's gonna have a nice come up.
Yeah.
I know. And it's actually perfect that he's not in his job anymore, because I feel like that would have been the reception of like every time they show him, it's like, fuck this guy. Now he can't hurt us anymore. Mm-hmm. So
you're free to celebrate the shot again. Yeah. The shot brings up good feelings.
Good timing. But it was good two episodes. I really do kind of wish we just had these one episode every night for 10 consecutive nights, because they're all just so good, and I want to watch them all now.
It's kind of rare that you get done watching. Leroy, what are you doing? Sorry, Leroy's eating an entire Indian dinner off my coffee table. Hang on.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a wild move to have an Indian dinner just sitting on your coffee table.
Spit it out. He's eating tinfoil right now. Leroy, spit the tinfoil.
That's not. I'm not going to blame Leroy for that one. That's on you.
He's blind, but he can find naan from across the room.
Yeah. If Stella eats anything that is at like height, her height level, it's never my fault. I mean, it's never her fault. It's always my fault.
Sorry, Leroy, go to your crate. He doesn't know where his crate is. Okay. Where were we?
We were talking about the grudge meter and you were saying it's rare that we'll watch something and
We'll watch something that's 2 hours long. So each of these, each Sunday night we sit down, we watch 2 hours of the Jordan documentary, and afterwards I feel better. I feel less tired after watching it. Anything else, any movie that I watch, I'm like, okay, time to go to bed afterwards. Now it's like I want to stay up later, watch more of this, or at least watch some basketball on TV.
I actually had that thought during this, like how sad it is that we don't have an NBA Finals this year. Maybe we will, but there's just so much history in the NBA Finals. It's one of those things that I guess it's for all sports and their championships. You just remember where you were when you watch these things, and it's like a rite of passage on the calendar. Like, June comes around, like this is NBA Finals time. Like, where is it? So I'm a little sad. I had that moment whenever it gets to when we get to like the end of May, early June. You're like, shit, this is when the NBA Finals should be going on. It was great. Yeah,
this is when we should be having like playoff ecstasy.
Yeah,
yes.
NHL and NBA.
You're right. We should be dealing with like overtime hockey games right now. Fans getting punched in the throat.
There should be a game set. There probably was a game 7 today.
God damn it. The other two notes I had, that depressed me. The other two notes that I had was how cool the Dream Team cups were at McDonald's back in 1992. Yep. I saw those pictures earlier today. That's all I could think about was like putting those in the dishwasher and taking them out, and they're immediately like half of David Robinson's body's gone on them after one wash. But those cups are awesome. I would go back all the time to get those. And then I was surprised that Michael Jordan laced up his own shoes before games. I always thought he had a guy that broke them in for him.
He doesn't trust anyone else.
Like Jimi Hendrix strings his own guitar, probably.
Yeah. Could you imagine? It also probably was knowing that last episode talking about the crush of celebrity, the 3 minutes that he got to tie his own shoes was probably a nice.
It's like taping up your own stick in hockey.
Yeah. Could you imagine playing an entire basketball game in ones at like 14 years after that was the hottest new shoe? It's crazy.
Oh,
it's crazy.
And the ones they make now are definitely probably better than the ones they made now. You might be able to play in. The ones they made back then, I can't even imagine.
Another big loser. Maybe I was looking away. Maybe Leroy was eating some tikka masala off my plate when this happened. I missed it. But did they not even show the John Starks dunk?
They did.
Oh, they did. Okay, I must have missed that. I thought they just completely glossed over that. I chalked that one up to MJ having final cut.
No, they did. Those series were, and we'll get to it. I'm sure they'll show the 94 series, which we talked to Horace Grant about how great that series was with all the drama and different things that went on.